We're live here with a friend of mine back from my days wrestling in Puerto Rico. I think he holds the record for any of American to stay there for an extended period of time. He's also wrestled for Office Company. He's had a WCW tryout. He's had numerous WWE matches that Gerald Briscoe hooked him up with, who he's longtime friends with. But he's held numerous titles in Puerto Rico, and I wanted to get him on to talk about it with the fans. Brent Dail, how are you doing today?
What is up, my man? How you doing, brother? It's been a real long time, Devin. Or Hannibal, which way you want me to call you?
Hannibal's fine. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
we'll
the
go
last
Hannibal.
time was in Florida that I saw
Yeah, it's
you.
been a while, man. So
Yeah.
I mean, we hung out and had a few drinks and BS for a little while and stuff. Yeah, it was fun. So,
But I never actually, for all the driving that we did together and stuff, I never actually heard about how you got into wrestling, the full story. So I know you were an amateur champion. Why don't you start off by telling us some of your amateur credentials?
yeah, I basically I started wrestling when I was in I would say 10th grade. I started when I was 15. Wrestled JV, wasn't that good. Yeah, I got it all right. I was okay. And then after a while, it just I got better and better at it. And then every year I got better. And then by my senior year, I ended up finishing second state in the state of Florida. So I did pretty well. I mean, that's close to being unheard of now because of kids start pretty much when they're like 5 years old. I mean, they did back then too, but it wasn't you could start, in high, junior high or middle school and do all right. But I started in 10th grade and did really well. And then I ended up going to a junior college out in Colby, Kansas. And I ended up All-American in there and was a junior college All-American. And then I ended up going off to Carson Newman and wrestled there for about 3 years. And I qualified for the NCAAs, but I didn't All-American. I actually had messed up my knee my senior year. I had to get knee surgery. So, and then that's pretty much, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, there's more details and stuff like that, Hannibal, but this is pretty much, that's the big gist of it all. So,
and that was the days before they really started recruiting from NCAA. Cause I think you're like around Brock Lesnar's age. So they may have just been starting to recruit at that point. How did you meet Bill Briscoe?
Yeah, actually, a lot of guys like Brock and stuff were like a little bit behind me. They went to, because the junior college system is just like, they used to call it the thug division. So it was like full of, Daniel Cormier that went to my school, that went to Colby. He was an alumnus there. John Jones wrestled for Iowa Central. You had Brock Lesnar wrestled for North Dakota State, Bismarck State. I'm sorry, and then Shelton Benjamin wrestled for Lassen. I mean, we were all around. I mean, weren't not necessarily. I was around more with like Shelton. Me and him were in junior college around the same time. But no, when I met Gerald Briscoe, it's kind of funny how it all happened. I ended up going back, and I was a wrestling coach at Lake Gibson High School. I was a assistant coach there. And what ended up happening is I had 2 state champions that year. The kids did really well. And then the funny story, how it happened, how I ended up meeting Gerald Briscoe was that day I was supposed to go to the tournament. The kid, David Huff, who had won state, he wanted to go to the freestyle tournament, an off-season tournament. And I was like, all right, we'll show up. And I was really hungover from the night before. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. And I'm just my girlfriend at the time. I tell her, I'm going to wait like about another half hour. And if it doesn't show up, I'm leaving. She was like, okay. Then right as I'm about to walk out the door, he walks to the door. So, you ready to go, coach? I was like, okay. So we go to this tournament and I look like crap. I don't feel so good. I'm sitting there. And then Gerald Briscoe happens to be there. It was at Lakeland High School. And he was there with Wes Briscoe and a couple other kids. And he walks past me. He sees, he recognized David Huff, who was a state champion. And he was like, are you his coach? I said, yeah, I'm his coach. He said, man, you look like you're his age. I said, well, I mean, he said, how old are you? I said, 23. I was like 23 or 24 then. And he was like, well, you look like you're still in high school. And he said, well, you know what? We talked a little bit. And then he said, okay, I'll talk to you later. Well, then later on the day, Wes is about to get up and wrestle, and then some other couple of his kids. And he was like, "Hey, coach, come over here." He comes and finds me. He said, "Hey, coach, come over here. I want your help on some stuff." So he sat there and talked to me. I talked to Wes and a couple other kids, and they went out and wrestled and did pretty good and everything. So I just kind of showed him a couple of pointers, and it kind of, some of it worked for him, some of it didn't. You know, it is what it is. And then I'm sitting there talking to him, and I just thought of it. It was my opportunity to ask him. So I said, I always thought about getting into the wrestling business. He goes, "Really?" He goes, well, "You're a little small." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You put on the weights, get on the weights and stuff like that." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I already trained. Well, you need to start eating or doing something." I said, "Okay." So he said, "Well, I can talk to Dory Funk for you, and we'll go from there." So long story short, he calls me one day and says that there was a clinic out at Sickles High School in Tampa, and he wanted me to show up there. And and Kurt Angle was going to be at this tournament. So he said, "I want you to show up and, kind of work with some of the kids." I said, "Sure." So I show up and I meet Kurt. And then he tells me that day, he said, "I talked to Dory, you're going to be going there here shortly." He said, "He's expecting your phone call." And then he tells Kurt about me. And then me and Kurt talked for a little bit, and he was like, "All right, Dory will teach you a lot. You'll do well." And then when I was coaching, I was sitting around coaching some of the kids, because it was a huge clinic. So I'm walking around, kind of notice them like kind of looking at me. You can kind of tell when people are staring at you, just trying to see what I could, what I was about and everything. And then they come up and they kind of, talk to me a little bit with some of the kids and show some things. That was pretty much it. And then I ended up going to Dory's camp after that. And then everything, and then stuff started to kind of go from there. But that's pretty much the gist on how I met Gerald Briscoe. And he was really cool. I was surprised that he took such an interest at the time. I was like, man, I'm not Kurt Angle. I'm not any of those guys. And I was just really surprised. But hey, when an opportunity knocks, you better grab it. So that's how I looked at it.
It's funny that Briscoe said you were small, because for today's wrestlers, you would definitely be above average, possibly large.
That is kind of true, because back then everybody was like Brock Lesnar's size. Everybody was The Rock, Steve Austin, everything like that. I mean, the smallest guy was Rey Mysterio, but I couldn't wrestle like Rey Mysterio. They wanted me to be like Scott Steiner's size. Like Vince, that's how big he wanted me to be. So it was like, you get big, you get to, So I was like, all right, fine. So I did everything I could to get there, but it's just that was a different day and age, Now it's like I look at half the guys and I go, golly, sack of fly shit getting out there in the ring. Sorry, excuse my language, but that's kind of how I look at it a little bit, And it amazes me, because it's about, how it is, Hannibal. It's about believability, straight up believability, And some of those guys, I look at them and go, no. It's just like, you can do all that flip flop fly shit, but all I got to do is put you in the short arm scissor and the match is over. So
Hey, speaking of believability, do you remember that baseball stadium show where those guys were so terrible in the ring that we ran in and just started beating them up, and then all the baby faces and heels?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think we went and tore them all up, didn't we?
Yeah, they were gone by the time we got back to the dressing room.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was funny.
I know. I remember you told me not too long ago. It's actually something that I forgot about. Was when we have a weapons battle royal or something like that, and I start, or like sometimes.
Oh God, yeah.
What was it like? Their version of War Games or something like that. WWC's version of War Games, and I started throwing all the weapons out.
Yeah, because we were not getting paid very much in those days. And I don't even think they told us there was going to be light tubes. And we get to this ring and it's full of light tubes. And you came in and just threw all the light tubes out, because it's we're not getting paid.
Get all this. I was like, take this shit out of here. I don't need this in here.
But you got heat for throwing out the light tubes from the crowd. So that's even better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know how it was there, man. There were certain things in Puerto Rico, man. You could just get good heat there. I mean, you just had to say the right things, do the right things. And, the fans there were like really, really easy in the sense of that sense. I mean, they really wanted to be involved in the show. And you know how that was, man. It wasn't that hard if you believed in who you are, and they wanted to believe in you. So that's the thing that was great. And the one thing that I always loved about World Wrestling Council, Carlos, is they always tried to portray wrestling like a sport. They always tried to portray it like it's a fight, like it's the UFC. That's how they always tried to portray it. The IWA was a little different. They tried to be a little bit more like, the theatrics and stuff like WWE and stuff, and which is fine. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm in this business because I love both of them. But the thing is, man, it's like we were always taught to believe that how it was there, man. We had to practice kayfabe there, and if we didn't, we got fined or we got fired or something like that. I mean, they were really strict on us. Remember all that stuff?
Yeah, and there was quite a feud with IWA and WWC at the time. Actually, there's a fan on here that wants to know if you ever met Savio Vega or Miguel Perez, but you were usually wrestling for the competition.
Actually, here's the funny thing. I'll tell you a Savio Vega story. Me and Savio are still cool to this day, but Savio recruited me initially. Actually, Victor Quinones came to Dory's camp, really liked me. He was there with Eric Perez or Escobar or whatever, and me and Eric got to be good friends. And during that time, and Quinones was real interested in hiring me. So Savio talked to me. Actually, Dutch Mantel called me first to talk to me, and then Savio did. They all did. And during that time, I was, I'll be honest with you, Hannibal, I was green as a blade of grass. So, about green as Kermit crap. So it was like, I didn't know half of what they were talking about. I was just trying to hey, listen, am I going to get a job or what? And I think they were kind of sold, but not too sold. So it was just like IWA was like the initial place I was going to go. And then Gerald Briscoe changed all that and sent me to World Wrestling Council and WWC. So
I was going to ask you how you ended up in WWC. How did Gerald Briscoe?
Actually, this was actually a funny story. So what ended up happening is Jerry, I was getting done with the Funks, and we were wrapping all that up, and had a little bit of heat there because of my ex-girlfriend at the time. She was just one of those girls. She just didn't know how to keep her mouth shut, and I was just like, well, things happen, Jerry and we talked, and he was like, well, I think you need to talk with Jerry and see what's going on from there. So I talked to Jerry. I told him about the whole IWA thing. He goes, well, let me see what's going on. So he ends up calling me back and saying, listen, Carlos Colon's taking you in World Wrestling Council. And I had heard of Carlos from back in the day. I used to, read all the wrestling magazines and stuff like that. So he was, and I saw the feuds with him and Abdullah the Butcher. So I was like, cool, I'd be honored to go there. Anyways, so I ended up going, Jerry brings me back. He said, okay, well, during that time, I want you to work with Wes. I want you to coach him, train him. And he was coming back from two rotator cuffs, two torn rotator cuffs. So I basically kind of was like his sports psychologist, his coach, his trainer, everything to trying to get him back to where he did. And he actually had a really good season. He qualified for state. He lost a couple matches at the beginning. Then he went on like a 20-match winning streak. And it was he just started destroying people. And he looked really good. And I told him, talked about his bloodline and told him, this is what you are. I mean, I'm a motivator. So pretty much what I told him. And he went out there and took care of business. And so we ended up working. I worked with Wes a lot during that time. And Jerry was talking to me, trying to get me ready to go there. Well, then he ends up sending me there. So this is actually a funny story, Devin. I get there. I show up at the airport. And Atletico, Hannibal, you remember Atletico, the referee?
Yeah.
He is the one waiting on me at the thing, and he doesn't speak it. His English got better, but at the time he doesn't speak English, so he's got a sign sitting there saying Brent Dail, and I said, I'm him. So he goes, oh, okay, let's go. Yeah, see, vámonos. I'm like, okay. He doesn't speak English, so I was like, so they drive me to the office for like not long at all. And Carlos and Jovica talked to me for like maybe not even 5 minutes. And 5 minutes. I mean, it was pretty quick. Okay, your starting date is Juana Diaz, Thursday. We're setting you up at the Dahlia Quince over in Isla Verde. They're going to send you over there. Okay, so I get there. He drives back. They're talking, and everything's just, I'm not used to it because to me, I'm like a alien walking in there. So I didn't really know any better. So, because I couldn't understand Spanish at the time. So they're sitting there talking and stuff like that. You here, you're good. Thursday, Juana Diaz, you be there. I said, how do I get there? They go, and Carlos and Jovica said, you figure it out. I go, okay. So next thing I know, I decided I was going to call Jerry. And during that time, I didn't have a cell phone yet because cell phones they were there, but they weren't too prevalent. This was like 2002.
And there wasn't text messaging right at that time.
No. So, yeah, this was 2002. So people were like, pay phone, stuff like that. So I gave Jerry a call on a pay phone. And it was kind of a funny story. He goes, how'd you do? I said, I got there. I'm here. He goes, all right. He says, what do you think? I was like, man, I don't know, Jerry. I'm a little thing. He goes, well, welcome to the wrestling business. Call me in a couple months. Click. I was like, okay, I guess it's called Survive. Basically what it was. They basically threw me in the deep end and told me to swim. And, 5 years later, I mean, pretty much walked up that island, drawing a lot of money and doing a good job. So that's pretty much it. It was funny. He just says, see you later, buddy.
Yeah. And not to mention, I think you had your way with a lot of girls there as well. I had a girlfriend most of that time, but I know you played the field.
Brother, it was crazy there, dude. When I was there, it was like, you don't seem to understand, man. When you're there.
That's the secret to staying so long. That's how people don't get it.
You have to get the women to love you. That's it. And when I was a babyface, they loved me. When I was a heel, they hated me, but they'd all be there. I had a section they used to say, oh, there's Brent's section over there. And be full of like strippers and all kinds of showgirls and all kinds of stuff. And I'd be like, all right. I used to have girls. Listen, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I've learned a lot from like a lot of the guys like Ricky Santana, Fidel Sierra, guys like that, that taught me how to survive on the island and stuff like that. Taught me how to, to draw money and things like that. And I had other people that were good influences too, but, and I'll name them later, but straight up, man, really, I mean, I remember one time I used to have girls that would come to give me breakfast, do my laundry, cook me dinner, whatever errand I needed them to do, they would go do it. I felt like I was running a business there, man. I mean, that's just kind of how it felt. It was funny, man.
Yeah. So, and at that time, like there was 4 hours of WWC on TV a week and 4 hours of IWA. So it was
funny. And here's the thing. They had so much TV time during that time that we were all over the place, man. I mean, I think I was either on one segment on a Saturday show or I was on a full segment on a Sunday show. Or if I had an interview, I'd have an interview on one show and then I have a full match on another show. And my ratings used to do really well. So, I mean, there's a reason, man. You're not going to, how it is, Hannibal. You are not going to stay somewhere unless you're drawing money. If you don't draw money, you are gone. That's how they look at it, man. I remember the first 3 months I was there, I wasn't doing much. And they were tempted to like send me home and I had to change up a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of this had to do with some certain things, but I did a couple of things that I was told I had to do to get over, because if not, Carlos and Jovica didn't play, man. They were old school. They were old school to the get-go. And they just, people don't seem to understand something about, I learned a lot from Carlos and Jovica had a mindset of, he thought like Don King. He was like, if you can't make me any money, why do you think you deserve to get paid? And he used to tell me that. He says, if you make me money, you get paid. If you don't make me any money, why are you asking? And I do get it. I understand. Now it's not right. It's not right, because if somebody works for you, I get it, but I stayed because I made money. But the funny part is Hannibal, is I would get like a paycheck and it would have like a crap ton of deductions on it. It would sit there, and then next thing I know, I think my guarantee was like between $500 and $1,000, like in between there. And I would have all these deductions, and then by the time I got my check, it'd be like $200 or $100. And I was like, crap. He said, well, you got to pay for your apartment. You got to pay for this. You got to pay for that. I asked him one time, were you paying for this? Stuff's not free. I was like, okay. So it is what it is, you know. Some of them I got full checks, but not most of the time. And then sometimes I'd look and I go, why am I getting paid this much? So, you know, but go ahead, man. Yeah.
Al was just wondering, and I'm sure it was pretty much the same.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how it was. I mean, I know you went through that whole thing, so you understand it.
Yeah.
But that's Jovica's mentality. I got to know him for so long. That's him and Carlos. That's how they thought. So.
Or sometimes you get the check and it wouldn't cash, and then they'd write another one for you for half.
Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, so you'd have to drive all the way back to the office, and then they say, oh, don't worry the next time, but whatever.
You know, made me laugh one time. Made me laugh one time. I needed some money for something one time, and they go, oh, how much you need? And I told them I need to pay, you know, I think I needed money for like the electric bill or something. I was off for by a month or something. He goes, how much you need? And I told him. He pulls out a roll of like hundreds and then just starts peeling off. Like, I think he peeled me 2 of them and said, here, go ahead. Go pay your electric. I go, thanks, Jovica. Appreciate it. And I just looking like, you something else, dude. For real.
That's why I get annoyed today at these wrestlers asking for their releases when they're spoiled and they don't know what it's like to not even know if you're getting paid, and you got to wrestle 4 days a week.
We wrestled 4 days a week. Literally, Hannibal. I had, by the time I left there after 5 years, I had 1,000 matches. And the reason why I know that is because I even looked at my pay stubs. I had like a stack of envelopes I would use as like my stuff for like records of like the money I made. I kid you not, I counted it out one time. I had way over 1,000 matches being there 5 years. And when I walked out of there, I think I made maybe $200,000 in 5 years, I think, working there. I mean, it is what it is, but you know, I didn't see that money, but at the same time, it was just by how it looked. But also, you know, because everything was paid. I had to pay for, you know, you had to pay for rent. You got to pay for electric. You got to pay for your expenses, all that kind of stuff, you know. And then sometimes this is the funny part. They would rent a car and then charge me for the car. They would rent me a car and then say, oh, well, I'm going to take it out of your check. And I'm like, okay, well, that or go rent one. And I was like, okay, I'll go rent one then. But it was something else. I mean, it's just you hit that on the head. These kids nowadays just don't get it. They do not get it. They don't understand what it's like to scratch and claw to be the best. A lot of them come in, they think they're entitled. That was one thing that a friend of mine told me the other day. This guy Salim that I've been training, him and a guy named Haas, his name's Joe Winsky, and Salim Heidler. He actually had a tryout with AEW, and he went not too long ago. And he told me how it went. He went in there to Tony Khan, and he sat down with him, and he goes, man, you are so humble. He said, most of these guys walk in here, and they are extremely entitled. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to that. And he goes, and he looks at me, he says, we ain't looking for that. We're not looking for somebody. We want somebody that wants to be blessed to have an opportunity, not, oh, I deserve this. What have you done? That is my question. What have you done to be there? I know what I've done. I know what you've done. What have you done? Had 4 or 5 indie matches a month, maybe if you're lucky, maybe one. Try working where that's your job, where that is your livelihood. And then you come back and talk to me. And then go try to get somewhere else. Then you deserve it. Then you deserved it. But right now it's understandable because few and far between places to work. And then you got every Yahoo in the world trying to open up a wrestling school or open up a promotion or whatever, all these money marks and all this type of stuff. So it's like, you know, the business is too saturated, way too saturated. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I just believe it's very saturated. So.
Oh, I do agree with you on that. One thing I want to ask you about, you told me about this before when Piper came over to WWC Puerto Rico. I understand you spent quite a bit of time with him.
Yeah, I actually spent like an entire weekend with him. He helped me out a lot. Fidel Sierra, it was me, him, Fidel, Fantasy, and Roddy, and we were hanging around. And Lynn Denton, we were pretty much driving around for the whole week. And then they would basically, I went to the beach with him a couple of times. We sat down and he talked to me, and he straight up he said, listen, he basically hinted that Jerry Briscoe sent him there and that, he wanted me to talk to you and stuff. And he was there just to work with Carlito for the weekend. And he would actually sit there. He sat down and talked to me, poured a lot of knowledge into me. I mean, I swear, I learned from like 6 or 7 different WWE Hall of Famers and guys like Dutch Mantell, Sabu, all these great minds, Ricky Santana, Fidel Sierra, all these guys are great minds in the business. Carlos, Jovi, I could name them all. And some of the Hall of Famers I knew. And I always felt like I was always sitting under a learning tree and being poured a crap ton of knowledge into me. And it was like, listen, kid, what I'm trying to tell you. And I'd listen. I didn't like, oh, I know everything. Like some of these kids are now. Oh, I know everything. No, you don't. You don't know crap. What do? Live at home and you've been sheltered your whole life. And then now you think you know everything because you watch it on TV, the internet, YouTube, Snapchat, whatever. Come on, please. So you got to get out and experience life. That's how it works. And when Piper sat down and talked to me, he said, listen, I've watched you. I think you're really good. He said, but this is what I want to tell you. You're a heel now. So he said, listen, I'm going to teach you how to get over. He said, you have to make everybody think that you are completely out of your mind. He goes, you need to make the fans believe it, the boys believe it, the promoters believe it. You got to make everybody think that you are completely nuts. He goes, that's how you're going to get over because you are in the land of giants. And he says, you got to get over. He said, me and you are the same height. Everybody thought I was crazy. He said, nobody wanted to deal with me. Hulk Hogan didn't want to wrestle me. Everybody didn't want to wrestle me. He said, you know why? Because I had guys like Johnny Valentine pouring knowledge into me when I was younger, saying, he says, you know what? He said, I was playing around in the locker room one time. He said, back then, he said, you played around and act stupid. He said, a veteran walk up and slap you upside your head. He said, Johnny Valentine walked up and slapped me upside the head and said, basically, he said, kid, this stuff might not be real, but you better believe I'm real. And he said, I never forgot it. And he said, that is how you have to be. He said, you might not think this stuff is real, but you better believe I'm real when I walk in that ring. So, that was, and I was like, I get it. He said, so when you go out there, you portray it. He said, you make them believe it. You make them believe that nobody can touch you. You walk through that dang, he said, it's going to get to a point where you're going to walk through that crowd and they are going to part like the Red Sea. And they did. And I was like, wow, this crap worked. It was straight up. And all it was the promos. You know how it was. The promos, how you sold yourself.
I wasn't allowed to talk.
I know you weren't. You had damn Jose Estrada with you.
Yeah.
What a great guy, though. Wasn't he the man, though?
Or Cheeky Star a few times. And actually, Al is asking.
Hey, dude, Cheeky was the man, too, dude. Cheeky taught me a lot of stuff. He was like Puerto Rico's Roddy Piper, dude. He was the man. Cheeky, I worked with Cheeky a couple of times. He wanted to work with me in the ring. All of his Starianos liked me. They would cheer for me, just like they cheer. They said, we cheer for you like we cheer for Cheeky. I was like, Cheeky was a good dude, man. Him and Jose Estrada. Jose Estrada taught me a lot. So it was cool. It was cool stuff, man. You understand something, Hannibal. We learned from a lot of really good guys that were just, and you just had to sit down and listen, man.
Dutch Mantell, too, was always back there.
Dutch is here's something that Dutch told me that I never forgot it. At first, I didn't want to believe it, and then I understood what he was saying. Dutch is like just as far as like intelligence and everything like that is the man. I mean, every time, like I said, every time I would ride with people, I would ride with, a veteran or something like that. Hercules Ayala, whoever, Carlos, plenty of road trips with Carlos. And just Jovica, I rode with him a couple of times. And they would just pour all this knowledge into you. Well, anyways, so we're sitting there talking and everything like that. And I just feel like that, I'm sorry again. It was crap. I started naming all Dutch. Sorry, I started naming all these people, and then I started like forgetting who we were talking about. Anyways, Dutch, he basically sat there, and I rode with him a couple of times. He said, I know we talked in IWA and stuff, and I did want you to go over there, but I did think you were green. He said, you're good, you're a really good wrestler. And he told me some stuff that I needed to do and work on. He said, the problem is with Puerto Rico, and it kind of dates all the way back to the whole thing with Vince and Carlos, because there was an issue that happened back in the day. And Dutch told me about it. He said that basically that they were coming down to take over. You remember that in the back in the day with the territories, Vince was buying up everybody.
Yeah.
Anyways, they tried to come down to Puerto Rico to buy out Puerto Rico. They did a show in Puerto Rico, and Carlos outdrew them. So they come in the office, and wanted to come to the office, and Jovica basically told him, he said, you come over here, gringo, you have a gun in your face. And from my understanding, Vince is how he is. So he went there, and they said they pretty much pulled their pieces on him and said, him and Hogan said, get out of here, gringo. You told you're not going to buy us out. They weren't playing.
Yeah. And for the fans out there, a lot of the Puerto Rican wrestlers carry guns. It's not uncommon to be changing next to somebody and they open their up and there's a gun in there.
Remember, Thunder and Lightning? Remember them? Yeah. They walked out one time. We're going to a locker room, and I'm with them in the back, and there are people throwing rocks at the locker room. They opened up the door, and they both of them pulled out their pieces, and the thing parted like the Red Sea. Everybody ran, and they said, "All right, go to your cars, gentlemen." So it was like, because they were ready to peg us right when we walked out. But it is wild down there, man. It was wild down there in the early 2000s. People had all those stories about the 80s and 90s. It was still that way in the early 2000s. I mean, they still had the believability. They still loved it. But what I was telling you about Dutch, circling back to him, Dutch basically told me that he said, here's the problem with Puerto Rico. And I'm going to tell you straight up. He goes, the problem is with all the stuff that happened in the back in the day, WWC Puerto Rico is right under the radar. He goes, because they don't, Carlos and Jovica about their island in the Caribbean. They don't really care necessarily about worldwide exposure, all this stuff. Everybody knows about it and everything like that. But they don't have the notoriety like they're still on the same level, but they don't do the publicity like New Japan, All Japan, Mexico, AAA, CMLL, WWE, AEW, all them. They don't do all that publicity like they do, but they've been around forever. They've been around for 48 years. But the thing is, though, is they're more concerned about the island and stuff like that. So he said the problem is, because during the time I was coming up, there was the CM Punks, the Samoa Joes, all those guys. And they were saying, here's the problem with them. You've had so many more matches than they have. But the problem is they're getting more exposure because they're in the Mark magazines. They're doing all the pro wrestling magazines, all that kind of stuff. And half of those guys paid for their publicity. So don't sit there and say whatever. I didn't have the money to pay for the publicity. I was working in WWC. I was too busy working. So the thing is, though, is he said the problem is you're right under that radar where people know of you, but you don't have the publicity like they do. So that's the problem with it. He says, and Carlos and Jovica are not necessarily going to change. So he said, that's the only problem you have here. You can get a ton of experience, a ton of matches. He said, but if people ain't seeing it, kind of hard. And back then it was a little hard. Now YouTube, stuff like that, all those type of things, we can see all kinds of stuff. But back then, what we have, WAPA America, and I think it went to New York at the time.
Yeah, and you'd have to. People find this hard to believe, but you didn't have internet, cell phone, and we didn't make enough to have laptops and internet for us. We had to go to internet cafes.
Yeah,
so what are we going to afford? Like 15 minutes at a time.
Oh yeah, I remember that. We go there and we'd be hanging out in the internet cafe all day, trying to get stuff done or trying to do something with yourself. And they didn't have that kind of stuff. The internet was starting to transition more then. Transitioning back into what it is now. But back then you had internet service, you had all that stuff, but it was more to laptops. You had the cell phones, you had text messaging, you had all that stuff, but people weren't so locked into technology like they are now. So,
Yeah. And I know I didn't have text messaging because I had numerous girls at those times too. And if there was text messaging, there's no way I could have pulled that off because you didn't have to answer back right away.
Brother, listen, have them show up at your apartment when you have somebody else in your house. Then you come talk to me, and then you got to try to straighten it out. You know what I mean?
I have had that, but actually here in Canada. But I won't get into that story.
Yeah, but I know what you too much, man. But it's just, brother, but that's how it was there, man. Here's the thing that Patrice O'Neal, the comedian, said. You got to understand something. He said, what you guys don't understand between the sense of American women and international women. He goes, when we go internationally, we're supermen. We're literally supermen. When we're here in the United States, we got like Krypton on us or something like that. He said, that's how it is. That's how the women treat us and stuff like that. You go somewhere else, you go to Brazil, you go to Puerto Rico, you go to Mexico, whatever, you're a superman when you walk over there. And it is the truth, straight up. And it doesn't help to be on TV either, but at the same time.
But what you were saying is true. Like wrestling's pretty much dead over there now. But if it was as hot as it was then with IWA and WWC feuding, and they had YouTube and all this, it would have been so much more popular.
Brother, it was it was a battle, man. I mean, I got tired of watching the other show because they were kicking our butt every weekend. I mean, it was basically like the WCW, WWF war back in the day, the Monday Night Wars or whatever. I mean, we were like the Saturday morning war. I mean, it was like fighting back and forth to see who was the best. And, I helped out with it. A couple guys helped out with it, but we kind of turned the tide near the end. Guys like, Hannibal, you helped out with it. We had a lot of solid core guys that just were hungry to win and hungry to have good matches and things like that. And we weren't gonna lose. That's just, and you know how it is. We have that amateur wrestling mentality, brother. You go out there, you're out to be the man. You ain't wrestling to win. You're wrestling to dominate. That's how it works. I mean, that's the mindset, brother. And you got it. You understood it. And that's how we were when we were there. So, and that's why we started to get ahead of them back then during that time when we were kicking our butt for like 2 or 3 years. And then
and ultimately they were still around. So ultimately WWC won.
Exactly. So who won the war? You know what I mean? They're still around. They're still around 48 years. I know that there's other things going on. I know I've talked to the Cologne family. I've talked to Stacy, stuff like that. I know there's some stuff going on with the family there and they're, with LAWE and stuff like that. And, they're trying to work all that out. I mean, I don't know how they're doing, but at the time they weren't seeing eye to eye at the time with WWC and that company. They weren't really seeing eye to eye at the time. So
no,
I don't know how it is now, but
yeah, I don't really follow it anymore. Ivan, who I know is from Puerto Rico, wants to know what was your favorite hangout in Puerto Rico?
Which I don't know. There's so many of them. I used to go to 101. That was like the kayfabe bar. So like we could hang out with like Eddie, like me and Eddie can hang out if we were like baby faces in the heel. It was like this kayfabe bar where we'd hang out. There was we had a couple of underground clubs we go to and stuff that you had to have membership to be in and stuff. I mean, but 101 was pretty cool. You would see all kinds of people come in. Tego Catharon would come in there. Daddy Yankee would come in there to have a drink. You would see stars come in there. Like, I mean, Hector Macho Camacho. I remember hanging out with him one night and we were sitting around getting drunk. And he's like, man, I watch WWC, so I know who you are, and he was like, he knew Eddie and stuff. So we hung out and stuff. That was one of my favorite hangouts. I mean, there was other favorite hangouts there too. I mean, every place, if you go there, everything is like a party if you want it to be. I mean, you could go hang out at one little area off the beach and have a great old time. It's just how it is. That's just how the people were there,
One thing that surprised me was how open people were with doing cocaine in a lot of these bars with like just doing it out on tables.
You could get that quicker than you could get weed.
Yes.
There's a lot of, dude, just trust me on this. I was like the gringo tour guide when I got there. So every WWE star that came down that got released or whatever, I'd take them around for the week, whatever. And I'm not going to say there's a lot of guys that had their vices and stuff like that. And, I'm not going to say it, but, the Booger Sugar was like one of them. So, and it was fun. I mean, it was funny. I mean, there were so many people that I got to meet down there and went through there. It wasn't funny. I mean, I think I started out my career with, like, when I was there with me and MVP. MVP was working for IWA at the time. Me and him hang out all the time and would have a good old time. And it was just a lot of fun, man. I mean, I hung out with Ricky, Fidel. There were so many people that came through there, like Dustin Rhodes, X-Pac, God, Sabu. Sabu came all the time. Sandman. Who else? There are so many people. Roddy Piper came through a couple of times. Anybody that recently got released ended up there. Tyson Comco, Matt Morgan,
Heidenreich.
Heidenreich. There was
not doing well. I remember that.
What's that?
That was sad seeing Heidenreich, like how far, or he had like fallen mentally, just in like.
He was an interesting cat. He rode with me a couple of times. I think me and him rode together, didn't we, a couple of times?
Yeah, I remember him blowing on his shirt, like it was like the front of his shirt, not even underneath. Like, who does that?
I don't know, man. I think he had like a routine when he got out of the car or something. I was like, dude, I don't know. Some guys, they're eccentric, man. It's just, you get that way when you're in that business long enough. You see all types of people where you're just like, nothing shocks you or surprises you. It really doesn't, I mean, at first you're green and you don't understand all that stuff, but when you've been in the business long enough, it's like nothing surprises you, nothing shocks you. You're like, you kind of look for the work and everything. It's just how it is, So I think the reason why Hannibal is because it's like on society as a whole that they pulled back the curtain and revealed the all powerful Oz. And now we've kind of seen the all powerful Oz, so it's like there's nothing really shocks me. I've seen just about anything. So, I think that's, am I right? Right or wrong?
Yeah. The wrestling business will do that to a person, especially in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, no, because I think it's because they believe it so much. There's so much of a believability there that they were really strict. I mean, I saw guys that would get fined for breaking kayfabe. I went to wrestler's court over breaking kayfabe, and I actually won it. That's the funny part. I actually won. I'll actually tell you the story about that. Remember La Rosa Negra or Black Rose?
How could I forget?
I know. How can we forget? Anyways, I was a baby face at the time. I had a little thing for her back then. I ended up dating her cousin or something like that. But anyways, I had a little thing for her back then. Well, next thing I know, I get pulled up on charges by Ricky and Fidel for breaking kayfabe to try to talk to her, holler at her. And she was a heel at the time. And I said that whatever. So we're at this charity softball game. And we go there and they were like, we're going to bring you up on charges. Well, Fantasy, Fidel's wife, wife said, I'll be your attorney. Don't worry about it. I'll be your defense attorney. We're going to win. I said, okay. So we go there. And Carlos is the judge. We're at this like softball game. Carlos is the judge. And he says, all right, let's hear from all parties. Ricky and Fidel, I love them to death, but they were just throwing me under the bus big time. So, that I need to please all this kind of stuff. Anyways, then it was Fantasy's turn to talk. And she was great. She turned around and basically just buried everybody. She said, well, your sons break kayfabe all the time. And this, that, and the other, and da-da-da-da. And she was just throwing all this stuff out. And then Carlos goes, I think I've heard enough. Case dismissed. I never saw two guys so pissed about my life. Ricky and Fidel, they were yelling at me on the way home. It was just funny as shit. I was just sitting there being quiet, but they were yelling at me and all this stuff. And I pretty much won wrestler's court. I didn't have to pay them. I didn't have to give them any get them drunk or anything like that. So it was kind of funny. So
you didn't have to steal any beer. You didn't have to steal any beer for them like you used to.
No, in fact, I didn't have to go to the cantina and steal the beer, But you know how it is, man. They took that stuff seriously. That's what kids don't seem to understand. they took kayfabe very seriously. I mean, it's not like they were completely old school. It was like basically walking back into the 70s. They took it seriously. If they heard that you were hanging out with a baby face, or they hung out, you heard you were doing this or doing that, you'd either be fired or you'd be fined. That's how it was. It just depended on the severity of things. But most of the time you get sent home. So
Bob Cook is saying hello to you here, one of your Florida boys.
Bob, what's up, my man? Good to talk to you. So
now you've had a bunch of WWE dark matches and you even won some of them, which is rare, and you got the footage of them. Could you tell us some of the highlights? Because that was still at the time in WWE where they were still selling out arenas.
I know. Try walking in. Okay, here's one of the things that just gets you goosebumps, man. I literally walked in. I think it was my first dark match was not that good. I put that thing on YouTube. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I cut that thing all up because, to be honest with you, it was terrible. It was terrible. One I had with SmackDown, it was terrible. It was good. The finish looked cool, but the rest of the match was the drizzling shits. Oh, excuse me. But anyways, it wasn't that good. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'm going to just splice it and cut it because I got those editing things. So I just started cutting everything up. But the match I had with Andy Anderson the next year, actually, that was an interesting one because they were going to broadcast that on WWC TV because it was IWA versus WWC. Andy Anderson was a big star for IWA back then, and I was kind of a peon in WWC during that time. And anyways, so they had that match, my second dark match in Orlando, and every time I went in, the place was packed. It was completely almost sold out. So just going in there with this huge crowd, and so that was actually a very significant match that actually IWA wasn't happy about. So we went in there, we had a good match, and Andy was just trying to get a job, man. Andy's a good dude. I love Andy to death. He's a good dude. We talked a lot. He's a good guy, and we had a really good match together. But just standing out there at the gorilla position, and then I remember that video package they made a long time ago that was called the Kid Rock one with Lonely Road of Faith.
Yeah.
They played that right at the beginning. It was right after they had made it, and they played that. They played it right before the dark match started, and I was so pumped up. I was just sitting there. I was ready to get in there and seek and destroy because the year before I didn't do so hot, and then I got sent to Puerto Rico after that. And this one, I was like, man, I'm going to blow the roof off this place. And I had enough experience for a year wrestling in so many big crowds in Puerto Rico that I had the confidence. So to me, it was just another day of the office, even though the magnitude of it. But I just thought about it like that, and then it ended up being a really good match. And then me and Andy, I kind of cut it up. I mean, Andy was a little mad at me. He's like, dude, why did you show any of my stuff? Okay, well, I'm trying to get over. But it was. That was the whole thing on it. It was a great match. It did really good. It was enough to where they were thinking about signing me right then. And some people had told them that I wasn't quite ready yet. I still needed more time. They were ready to sign me right there. And because I pretty much the crowd went nuts. I mean, it was good.
And this was before like NXT, and they were signing like 100 people to development contracts.
Back then it was even hard to get a dark match, but if you got one, Jerry hooked it up. Thank you, Jerry. He did do that, and he hooked it up, and it was like and it was basically the thing was with Vince. Vince kind of just how it is. Hannibal, I mean, at the time I got mad because I didn't understand as much, but now I do understand. Vince McMahon's mentality that I've started to understand is more of he's got a certain vision for you or who you are. If he sees somebody, he's got a vision for him. Now, if you don't meet that vision, it ain't going to happen. So he wanted me to be 240, look like Scott Steiner, wanted me to look huge. And when last time I talked to him, the last trial match I talked to him, and he told me, well, you're not exactly where I thought you were going to be. What do you mean? The size-wise. And he sticks to it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, but that's the thing. If you don't meet those expectations, you're not going to have a job. That's why when I sit there and I see these guys that sit there, all these marks that sit here and cry about whoever, oh, he's too fat, all this guy, whatever. You don't understand that that company is ran by one man, and it is his opinion whether or not you might not like it, but he's got 51% of that company. So it is his decision. So if he says that he don't like what you're about and whatever, you ain't going to be there. And that's what they don't seem to understand. And trust me, I witnessed it myself. I didn't even get a contract, even though I was promised a contract to go, because basically I'll tell you this. Do you want an interesting tidbit here, Hannibal?
Yeah, was it Johnny Ace you were dealing with, or who was
I
in
dealt
charge?
with Johnny. I met Johnny actually at the Funk's camp the first time, him and Ricky. That's how I got to know Ricky Santana. And he actually wanted to send me to the power plant right there. And Dory and Marty Funk kind of kiboshed that. But no, anyways,
Somebody does not want to tell you this story. They're calling to
yeah, I know. I got some chick on the airline, but she can wait. Anyways, so what happened is the story is basically this, and I'm not going to make, because people would say, yeah, whatever. I was basically told by Gerald Briscoe to go down there and do a great job. And if you can do what you need to do, God dang. Anyways, in 6 months to a year, if you do what we need us to do, you'll have a contract in 6 months to a year. I was like, all right, what do I need to do? Go down there and get WWC, get Carlos, get all them to start playing ball. And I was like, really? I'm a young guy. I don't know anything. He goes, well, if we send somebody in there new, it ain't going to happen. Well, the shit worked because they ended up getting Carlos. They ended up getting Carlito, ended up getting Eddie, they ended up getting Orlando. And they worked out a very good deal with them. I'm not going to say whatever because people can turn around and say whatever. They can say, hey, listen, whatever. I was basically promised a contract to go in there, and I felt like I was like a mercenary, and went in there to, I became very good friends with Carlito, Eddie, stuff like that. And I'm just telling you this because I wish I got it in writing. And me being young and green, I thought, oh, well, maybe they're a man of their word. Well, people aren't a man of their word. Vince showed me he wasn't a man of his word. So whatever, you promised me this, I didn't get it. Oh, well, it is what it is, but I know how it was, but if not, why else was I sent there? Why else was I there so long?
And what about your WCW tryout? How did that go?
That worked out pretty good. I had this kid named Adam Windsor that I worked with. He was basically with Dory's camp. He was good. He was a good wrestler, and we worked. And they were basically. It was during the time that they were about to fold up, but I don't think they knew that they were going to fold up. I think. Hold on a second.
Tell her to send us a nice picture that you could show out here.
I don't know if I want to do all that, man. Maybe, but long story short, dude, I went in there. I got a tryout. Like I say, I was there for like 2 weeks, and the final week is when WWC got bought by WWE, and they didn't even know. It came out of nowhere. That next thing you know, we're at what was it? I want to say it was a Holiday Inn, I'd say in Panama City or something like that. I want to say we were there for that. And next thing you know, they have a door that says WWE on it or WWF on it. And everybody's looking around, and it was so funny because not funny, but it was like weird to see all these guys that I got to see from the 80s and everything growing up, and then they're all afraid for their jobs. They're all scared that they're all going to get fired because Vince was taking over. And it was weird being backstage, seeing all that stuff. And I saw Jerry there. He was there as a representative. He goes, all right. We started talking for a little bit, and he was like, how are you doing with the Funks? We're going to talk here soon, that type of thing. I said, so I basically was thinking, well, I guess WWC's done now, or WCW's done. But I was there during that whole time. I mean, that's the funny part. I was actually in some significant moments in the wrestling business. So but it was crazy. I think that was probably the crazy thing that I saw was just the guys that were just so scared for their jobs, that you wouldn't think of, So
what would you say your best match was ever. I know I wrestled you once in a tag team match. I think it was you and James Storm against me and Eddie.
Oh yeah, you were a babyface at the time.
Yes,
brother. You're not a babyface.
I don't know why they brought me as a babyface for that, but they did.
Yeah, it was me and James. Yeah, I remember that. Me and James Storr against you and Eddie. I remember that. We had a good match, man. What we do? We got in there and did some amateur stuff, right?
Yeah, from what I know, it was in like an outdoor stadium.
Yeah, because we had so many. Yeah, but you remember we had so many of those outdoor stadiums, and then it would rain. I swear, like every time we would have one, and then the ring would be slick and stuff like that, and trying to work on a very
and your boots would get wrecked with all the mud.
That sucked. I mean, tried doing that and trying to do like all the flip flop fly crap, and then or the big high spots, and trying to do them with like a slick surface,
But what was your real? I was just joking there. I don't even remember any of that match other than that we'd had it. But what was your favorite match that maybe fans could look up that's on the internet?
What's that?
What would your favorite match be that's out there on the internet?
Oh, I mean, there was some. I worked with a lot of guys that were kind of up and coming at the time. I worked with so many guys down there. It was funny. I mean, I worked with Chris. I would say one of my best matches, I would say there was probably with Chris Candido. And I'll tell you how that one actually worked out. Chris Candido, God rest his soul. We had a good match one time in Saba. Do you remember that area? It was right outside of Caguas.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing is the camera crew was, and we're going through the mountains there. And what happened is that whole area there, the TV truck was having a hard time getting there. So they were like, listen, we need a match to get out there for 45 minutes and kill some time. So they were like, oh, well, send Brent and Candido out there. And Candido was on his way out. He was leaving. So we just needed like filler. So they said, okay, you guys are going to go out. And Chris was a total pro. Chris was like, I'm going to make up something off the bat and I'll make it a loser leave town match. I said, okay. Because he said, we're on your way out and I'll put you over on the way out. I said, okay, cool. Thank you. So he goes out there, he starts cutting a promo on the crowd. And then one of the announcers is out there translating it for him. And the place is packed. I mean, we were there and those small towns really, you remember those small towns would like really pack the house. And we go to those places like Hialeah, Saba, all them places that were little towns and they would sell out. And I think that's how they, if you agree with me, Hannibal, it was like when they, I think that's how we ended up beating IWA. It was like going to all the small towns that they wouldn't go to. They would go like Bayamon in the big place.
Yeah, and Victor Quiones dying also helped because he was the main money man.
That was very true. But what happened is that match in Saba, he comes out there, gets on the mic, and basically starts cutting a promo on the place and telling me this is a loser leave town match. If you think you're me or him. And I was like, okay. So he gets out there. We have a really good, like 45-minute match. I mean, we started from the beginning, everything just, good wrestling, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the match, he put me over and the place went nuts. And to be honest with you, I wish it was videotaped because it was a really cool match. And he actually gave me a compliment. He said, I have to admit that was probably one of the top 5 matches I've had in my entire life. He said from some young kid in freaking Puerto Rico, he says, and I go, wow, that's because he was NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He was wrestled everybody from The Rock to everybody. He wrestled everybody that was anybody. So, great worker, just tremendous guy, tremendous dude, good heart, and just really like giving back to the business and helping people out and things like that. Just good dude. So
now this was before my time, but I seem to recall that Sonny was also there and Sonny really didn't like it out there from what I understand.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to share about that?
The man doesn't talk. Just put it that way.
Oh my God!
A real man doesn't talk. So that's all I got to say. I felt no, I'm not gonna say anything. I just keep it. I'll tell you off camera. All I know is MVP comes up to me and goes, "Brother, I came by your house and Sonny's leaving your house." And I said, and I wasn't there. He goes, "She brought you cookies." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "What'd you do?" "Nothing." Eddie's like, "What'd you do?" "Nothing." "The girl just don't bring you food, brother." I said, I don't know. So like, that's quite dumb. But anyways, it was just, that's how it was. It was funny. I mean, I didn't try to. It just happened. But like I said, I'll leave that for another time.
Someone's asking, did you learn Spanish in PR, or did you just get the girls to speak for you like I did?
Here's a thing that people do not understand. Puerto Rico, when I first got there, I was a dumb gringo, and I came in there and I speak English to people and all that kind of stuff. And people would just look at you like you had worms crawling out of your ears. After a while, I started going, all right, how would it work? And somebody kind of filled me in on it. He said, listen, if you attempt Spanish, people understand that you don't speak it because most people speak English here. Okay. All right. What do you say?
Bob says he would tell the story about Sonny. I guess he knows it.
I'm not saying nothing. Tell Bob to shut up. I ain't saying nothing. But anyways, no, shit, I about lost my train of thought for a minute. What were we talking?
You're thinking back to your Sonny days.
No, it was the other one. What were we talking about right before that?
Now all I can think about is that other story that you're not going to tell us.
It wasn't anything big. It was just, she came by the house. That was it.
Right.
No big deal. So
you're not the first person I've heard that she's given.
I know, and I know that wasn't the last, and then everything was. And I just said, whatever. Just put it this way. I know why she had a job. Just put it that way.
Where can the fans follow you if they want to look you up? And I know you are training wrestlers as well now.
Facebook and Instagram, that type of thing. Just Brent Dail. It's not hard to find me.
Bob's correcting. He says there's a story about Rex King and Sonny, I guess, not you and Sonny.
Oh, well, there was another story. I kind of kept it under wraps. A couple of people knew about it. I didn't really say much. So there was other people. I just kind of shut up a little bit. So, but no, there was something interesting I was telling you about, and then I completely slipped my mind because Bob started talking to me. What was it about? I don't remember.
Maybe as the fans are enlightening us, I think you're training wrestlers.
Well, I am now. I'm training with, I have kids with FWF. I have a guy named Salim Heidler, Joe Wazinski. One calls himself Haas. The other guy calls him Big Vic. They're like, one guy's 6'5", the other guy's 6'4". They're huge and just trying to learn everything from amateur wrestling to pro wrestling, things like that. So that's basically it. So, I mean, and they're doing a really good job. I'm really proud of them. So, and it's Federation of World Fighters. Also, the link is federationofworldfighters.com. I also have a Facebook page on it and stuff. So we're basically training people and just trying to show like how the business used to be, more or less, in the sense of like teaching you amateur, then teaching you pro, things like that. So you kind of know how to take care of yourself in the ring a little bit. I mean, a lot of it has to do with catch wrestling and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, somebody actually asked me in an interview how amateur wrestling helps. And I thought that was a good question because it does help in numerous ways for pro wrestling. I'm not saying necessarily all amateur wrestlers make great pros, but maybe you could explain your version of like how amateur wrestling helped you as a pro.
I think what it is one of the things that I think that helped me with a lot of the knowledge was Dory Funk and Jerry. They basically said it's not that hard of a transition. People try to make it like it's a big transition. It's really not, because you already have a basis. You already have a basis for the sport. You already kind of know pretty much what you need to do. It's just you're basically loosening up. You're kind of loosening up on things, stuff like that. You're not giving it instead of going 100%, you're going 50%. I mean, and just the holds and things like that. That's really what it is. You learn how to take bumps. You try not to kill yourself. In an amateur match, if you get thrown, you're going to probably more likely land on your head. Okay. In a pro match, tuck your chin, you take a bump, you're good. You're not going to get hurt. Just little things like that, they're small, little intricate things that people don't explain. It's not that hard. It's really, I didn't find it was that hard. I just felt like it was just lighten up on what you're doing. Okay. And then teach me a couple of different holds and things, teach me how to bump, things like that. And some of us, there are, I wouldn't say every amateur's like that, but most amateurs, some take it like a duck to water and some don't, I mean, I think I was fortunate, and I think you were fortunate that we kind of took it like we were a duck to water. So,
Matt says what we were talking about before Bob Cook distracted us was about learning Spanish. You were about to say something.
Oh, okay. This is how it worked. Okay. What happened is what you would do is if you, for the longest time, that's how they were. And then I realized, they said, listen, man, if you attempt Spanish, they'll talk to you. So I come up to people and I'd attempt it. And then right after I attempt it, then they go, oh, I see you on TV. I know you don't speak Spanish. I speak English. There's so many people start doing that. So they all kayfabing you. So it's like most of them speak English. They just like to kayfabe you. So it's like they go, oh no, they teach it in the schools here. I was like, okay. Like most American schools teach Spanish. We teach, we teach Spanish, they teach English. So, that's how it was. That's actually how they tried to keep me in Puerto Rico. Like Carlos wanted to hire me as an English teacher so I would stay. And I was just ready to leave. I had been there too long. So.
Yeah. And you were ready to make some good money after getting wrestler pay for all those years.
Yeah, I was just ready to try to see what I could do with WWE, and it just didn't work out just because I went to Deep South. You went to Deep South. You know how it was over there. People don't seem to understand that. I don't know how much it is now, but back then it was like crabs in a bucket. I mean, everybody was trying to pinch, claw, whatever they could do to get to the top, so that's really what it is,
Yeah, it was a tough environment. And then there was 30 guys at Deep South, 30 guys at OVW. So there was less spots available. And there wasn't TV like NXT has now in the WWE.
Yeah, they're few and far between and so much far advanced than it was before. I think back then it was just like you maybe had a local TV maybe or something like that. And wherever you were at, wherever that market was, that's where it was. So,
And Deep South was literally in a store in a shopping mall.
Yeah, I remember it was in a strip mall. I remember it was so much different. I worked so much in Puerto Rico and worked in all these arenas and stuff like that. And then I go and I'm working in a strip mall. And then I build them out yelling at me. I was like, okay. And just trying to do whatever. And all I did was drills. And I'm like, okay, well, when am I going to get in here and work and show you what I can really do? You know what I mean? It was just, it was what it was. I think back then there was I kind of changed my tryout date. I think I kind of got some heat because I was having a job interview, I think the next week. And that's when they really wanted me to come. And I went the week before. I asked them if I could go the week before because why do you have a job interview? Because I don't know if this is going to work out or not. Because I'm a man that thinks ahead. Sorry. And the way you guys have been, I have no clue if you're going to go say yes or no. So, I got to have something on the back burner. If you don't, you're a fool. So, and I got into teaching after that, but it was, I just kind of realized that was the final time. So it was I did everything I needed to do. And actually the funny part is Undertaker got me my last tryout. I had so that was pretty cool. It was at a SmackDown taping. He got in the ring and worked with me. So it was, and I had been working with all these other guys in the ring, and then they left me in there to train with him. So it was pretty cool. I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, he trained with me in the ring too before, and people sometimes find that hard to believe, but he actually liked doing that.
In the ring and go with you. If he thinks you're pretty good, he'll get in there. He's sitting there because he's all about the young cats. So he's in there watching people when they're sitting in there training. That's what people don't seem to know about Taker. He'll sit in there and he's sitting on the sidelines watching these guys at the beginning of the day because he's the leader of the locker room. Of course he's going to do it. You know, he's out there watching people doing whatever. And then he, you know, I got in there with Sylvester Turkay and we had a pretty good little deal. And then, you know, then Taker gets in there and works with him, started like working with me. And I was like, you know, and he took a suplex from me. It was cool as hell. And I was like sitting there. Then later on, Johnny Ace is talking to me. He said, well, you can thank Undertaker because he got, you know how Johnny Ace is. Hey, Brent, you know, you can thank Undertaker for this match for your tryout because he's the one that got it for you. I was like, really? Because Vince wasn't going to do anything with me. And that last one I went to, and he said, you're going to go to Deep South in a couple of weeks. I was like, okay, cool. And he says, but I want you to thank Undertaker when you go to see him. So later on, I went up to the Undertaker and I told him, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. You didn't really have to do that. He said, well, listen, man, I've heard your story from Jerry. I know of you. He says, I believe that you spent 5 years down there, man. Those people don't spend 5 years there. He says, there's so many people that haven't. He goes, you're a tough dude. He goes, listen, I believe that people, if they bust their ass for something, deserve what they get and need to get what they need to get. He goes, now it's up to you. Now from here, it's on you. And I told him, thank you. I was like, really do appreciate that. And then Jerry was like, well, did you talk to the Undertaker? I said, yes, I did. So it was very cool of him. He didn't have to do that. So
I wish the business wasn't dead and we could go back for a year.
Yeah. I think they're trying with stuff. I think it's just all this COVID stuff that's been going on. And they think like, you know, Puerto Rico like basically follows New York. You know, they don't follow Florida. They follow New York. And whatever's going on in New York is what they're doing. So, you know, that's pretty much how it is.
Joe wants to know if you preferred being a baby face or heel. To me, you're definitely a more natural heel.
I think you died on me there, brother.
Oh,
still there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. So
there's a fan that wants to know if you preferred being a baby face or a heel.
I actually like being baby face. I got over with both, but the heel is where I experienced the most money. So I made more money as a heel. I actually got paid pretty good because of being a heel. I had a story one time, like Ivelisse Velez, who very well known, I guess, Lucha Underground, stuff like that. She was my manager at the time. She had just got started. She was pretty green. And one night, I'll give you a scenario. One night, we're in Ponce, the Playa de Ponce, that building, and they bring her out and they said, this is going to be your valet. I said, okay. And then I said, all right, do you mind if I come up with something? They said, go ahead. I said, this is what we're going to do. You're going to get in the ring and you're going to, how good's your English? She goes, oh, I speak perfect English. She goes, I said, okay. I said, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get in the ring and I'm going to say that I've converted your women and all this other kind of stuff. She's got blonde hair, all this other kind of stuff. And I said, tell her what I taught you, honey. And I put the mic in her face and she goes, I love America. Did I say it right? And I said, yeah. The whole place went nuts and just started throwing panadillas at me and beer and whatever. I got in the back. I remember Carlos goes, what are you doing, Brent? You're about to start a riot. And I was like, sorry. He goes, don't do that again. I said, okay. We go back the next week to the same building because remember, we ran that building a couple of times in a row. We go back. The house had like tripled in size. Carlos walks up to me and said, you remember what you did last week? I said, yeah. He goes, can you do it again? I said, I thought you told me we were going to cause a riot. He goes, no, go ahead and do it. I was like, okay. You want me to come up with something? I will. So, but yeah, that was just kind of how it was there. I mean, it just, I liked working heel more because there's more, it's fun as a heel, a baby face. You're kind of, it's fun, but you're okay. Here's the thing. As a baby face, you get to do all the cool moves, stuff like that. But your promos are kind of a little bit vanilla. You know, you can somewhat, but not too much. There's some parameters you got to follow. As a heel, you don't do as many cool moves because you don't really outshine a baby face, but your promos get to be great. So you get to like talk a lot of junk. So and you can talk them into the building basically. So.
Now, what title is that behind you there?
Oh, that's I actually got this because I won 10 World Junior Heavyweight titles for Puerto Rico, and I did win the win the Universal Heavyweight title in a match in Florida against Apollo. So I'm like the lineal champ. I think I got some heat for that one. I'm pretty sure I did. Anyways, basically it's like, and I won the world tag team title. So basically what I did was, it's a symbol of all the titles I won. So I just got it made and just says like, consensus world champion on it or something like that, lineal champion or something like that. So I just got it for that. So, because I can't, you know how it is. You know how you want to get some stuff to make, for your accomplishments.
Yeah.
I was going to get, but replica belts are just too expensive. So I was just like, you know what? I'll get something that symbolizes everything. And then down the road, if I want to get something, I'll get it. So
Now, where's the one for the girls?
I don't know about all that.
That could definitely be a title that you have too.
Yeah, for real. So it was a lot
There's
of fun.
you and somebody else I'm not going to name that were probably close for the ladies down there. But
it was brother. What people don't seem to understand, you knew how it was there, Hannibal. It was like it was like the Playboy Mansion. It was like a kid in the candy store, man. You had just a pick of all these beautiful women, and they were just all over the place. You would go to these towns, and they'd be packed with hot girls, and you're just like, man, that was motivation enough. I mean, it was like, dude, this is great. I mean, there's a reason I stayed there for 5 years. I mean, come on now. I mean, it's not because I got rid of the rock fever a couple of times. So, I know a lot of guys get rock fever and then they take off. So, no, I stuck around. So
you're a trooper for sure. And for being down there for a couple of stints myself, I definitely respect how long you were able to spend down there.
Well, I looked at it as it was trying to move on to something else, to WWE. And I felt like that the longer I stayed there and got over that, maybe WWE would hire me. And I was always in the ballpark, but never, getting there. So it was like, and I always told them, I kind of got into arguments with Carlos and Jovica because I told them, I said, listen, I would have to be the top draw to get out of here and go there. So I'm working my butt off to be the top draw. I'm not working to be second best or anything like that. I'm working to be the best. And so, that's pretty much how it worked. And that's a lot of what we had our differences at the end. So it was like, so it was just, I don't think they saw me that way, but the crowds kind of were different. The crowds said something else. So, it was just, listen, I was just I was just an asshole. I mean, that's really all it was. And to be honest with you, that it draws money. I'm sorry, it does. And the more you are, the more people, you don't have to do cheap heat, but you have to be subtle. And people will come to see you. They just want to see you get your butt kicked. That's really it. And the thing is, if you're a tough dude that they know that might not get his butt kicked, then that's more intriguing. This is something that Dory Funk always told me, and I never forgot it. Gerald Briscoe told me, people love somebody that can kick ass. They will always draw money. That's why Brock Lesnar draws money. That's why Bobby Lashley draws money. That's why Roman Reigns draws money. Why? Because they're believable that they can kick somebody's ass. Simple as that. I can't say so much not putting down anybody else, but you have to be, and I'm not going to do that, but you have to be believable. You have it. Like I said before, it's like Johnny Valentine said, this stuff might not be real, but you got to believe that I'm real. And that's what you have to portray to people. You have to portray that. You have to suspend disbelief. If you do not suspend disbelief, you are not going to fly flies. You're not going to draw flies on a phone booth if there was a pile of shit in it. It's not going to happen. You ain't going to draw nobody.
True. Just don't make them think you're too crazy like I've done.
Brother, I know your heart's in the right place, man. You don't have to tell. Brother, all these guys can say what they're saying right now, Hannibal. And I know you, dude. We've known each other a long time. I know your heart's in the right place, brother. I know that you want to try to do something with this business to make people believe. And I get it. I maybe the situation was not the most opportune situation, and shit happens. But, like I said, man, I knew your heart's in the right place. So,
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you doing the interview. And to close this off, maybe you could remind fans where they can follow you. And thanks a lot. And I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to say to the fans. Nice catching up with you again.
No, it was great. Hannibal was great. I mean, the people that can follow me on Facebook, you can follow me on Instagram. I do have a Twitter account, but I barely get on it. I got Snapchat, stuff like that. So it's Brent Dail, BrentDail. You can find me on Natural Born Fighter Brent Dail and Facebook page. Federation of World Fighters is my company. That's my school that I'm trying to get off the ground and make it into something. And that's basically it. I mean, really, I want to appreciate the fans, because without you, we got nothing. People got to believe in you. If not, then they're not going to be there. So that's the one thing that I have to say is that, just tried to give it everything I got when I walked out to that ring all the time, and give you every time, walked out and gave you your money's worth. That was it. I mean, that's really the name of the game. And people don't seem to understand that. It's about money. It's not about your high spots. It's not about all the fucking crazy flip-flop fly crap. You got to get people to believe in you. You got to get people to believe in you, believability, get over. That's it. And you could do nothing and people would love you. So that's just how it is. You could do the littlest thing and people will love you. But that's what a lot of these guys don't seem to understand, and they don't want to get. And the problem is that I feel like is they don't want to get it. And the business proves it. It shows it with ratings and things like that. It shows it. So, but some guys do get it. They're in all these other all these other organizations like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and guys like that. They're trying to teach these young guys how to work and how to Sting. All these guys, they're trying to teach all these guys, these young guys, how to work. And they just got to they got to listen and humble themselves and, listen to veterans, because those are the guys that know what's up. They can sit there. You can believe the marks all day or whatever, but at the end of the day, they want somebody they can believe in. Simple as that.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click